bringing you a steady stream of thought-provoking ideas and cutting-edge innovation. You're listening to Society and the State. Life, liberty, and your pursuit of happiness. Now, your hosts, Connor Boyack and Brian Hyde.
Welcome to Society and the State, everybody. Connor here alongside Brian to talk about the much-loathed three-letter federal agency. Oh, wait, which one?
Yeah, which one is that going to be?
All of them. But, you know, we have to narrow in on one of them in particular for today's topic. So we're talking about the one that I just had a run-in with the other day again. The TSA, the Transportation Security Administration. Brian, you know, why do we have these guys? I mean, the background here, right, is that 9/11 happened. They used planes. Therefore, we're now going to have this whole regime set up in which before you get to go on a plane, because those other guys brought on box cutters and other stuff, we're going to now search through everyone's bags to make sure that doesn't happen again. It strikes me, Brian, as very reactive. What do you think?
Oh, no, I think reactive is the order of the day. The problem that I have, and I presume you have the same problem, is the volume, if you will, the intensity, I should say, is being turned up in terms of how intrusive and how just flat out offensive it's becoming to go through the TSA gauntlet at the airport. Now, I'm going to confess right now, I've actually had pretty good experiences. I've only had one TSA agent who tried to provoke me, but I could see what he was doing, and I just pretended like I didn't hear him.
But you would concede, Brian, that it's not so much the gleeful disposition of the TSA agents themselves, so much it is the very existence of the institution.
Yeah,
right?
It's the institutionalized idea that this has to be here, and you have to submit no matter what.
So I think I fly a lot more than you, Brian. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
And not as much as, you know, many others, but I've done a bit of traveling, and I remember after the TSA was molesting a couple people, that there was a couple viral videos. There was I think she was a Miss America, and she did this video right after she had gone through TSA in which she was sobbing. I'll have to find the video. We can post it in the show notes page for today, which will be societyandthestate.com/103. She was crying afterwards, filming this video, talking about how she felt molested, how they had touched her intimate parts, and how upsetting that was for her, right? And you got to wonder what a video like that would do today in like the Me Too era, where there's a little bit more attention to sexual assault and things like that. Nevertheless, you know, this video went viral. Myself and others, not because of that necessarily, but it was kind of in that time. This was, I don't know, 2010 or 11 or so. We went up to the airport and we were handing out anti-TSA literature, you know, just like staging a little protest and got on the news and stuff. But, you know, for all of the viral videos and the problems and everything, nothing changes. I mean, we've talked about this, I think, a little before, Brian, where now you have this huge constituency. You have like this huge agency that funds all of these people who now depend on its existence. And when there's that much bureaucratic inertia, good luck trying to substantively reform, let alone repeal that program.
We could probably expand our objections to the entire Homeland Security apparatus because it was reactionary. It was something that people had proposed over the years, but after 9/11, here's our justification. People are scared, they're angry, they're fearful, and that's a really bad combination when it comes to those who want to expand government power.
And we've talked about that before with fear-mongering and my book, Feardom, and everything. That's definitely a trend that we see throughout history. On the reactive point, Brian, it strikes me as so stupid how, okay, the underwear bomber happened, right? And then the TSA starts implementing the new rule where they'll put a couple fingers inside your pant line and go along your entire pant line inside, you know, because he had kind of fastened this whole, like, explosive thing within the seam or whatever of his pants and underwear. And so because that guy did that, right, now we're going to go inside your pants and make sure. It's extremely reactive. There's no basis in actual security. It's why they're often branded as security theater. I think on an audit it shows they let 95% of weapons through. I mean, they're really unable to detect the actual problems. My dad, for example, he has I think it's not quite like a pocket knife. It's like a utility knife that he keeps in his bag. He flies a lot for work, and TSA never finds it. He's able to repeatedly get, like the first time he's like, oh, that's weird, and then it happened the second time, and then the third, and he's like, nobody's seeing this. That And so if they're not actually doing a good job.
You wouldn't know the brand of that utility knife, would you? Just ask them.
I'll have to find out. Okay. Maybe we can post an Amazon link on the show notes page. And I remember when the backscatter machines came out, the big X-ray devices, right? There was a huge fault in them. I think an upgrade kind of resolved some of this, but the way that the particles would kind of be shot at your body to see, what you have, it would kind of curve around your body rather than go through your body, such that if you had stuff in your side pockets, like cargo shorts perhaps, the machine would not pick it up. It was only like front and back. And so people were able to defeat the device by carrying stuff, on the side of their pockets. I, Brian, I think you know this, for quite a while when, I just fundamentally object to the TSA. I think it's a total violation of the Fourth Amendment, which requires what's called particularity. Right, like if the government wants to search you or seize something you own, under the Fourth Amendment, they must have what's called particularity. In other words, they must suspect an individual of a particular crime, that particular individual of a particular crime, before they have a legal basis to search or seize. Right, and so that's the problem with the NSA, the TSA. It's just these broad programs where, I'm not suspected of doing anything. They have no information on me yet. Now they're searching my bag. They're patting me down, right? They're detaining me. I think that's fundamentally a problem. And for a long while, when I would fly, I would resist going through the X-ray machine. I would demand a pat down instead. I would opt out, as it's called, because I figured that, look, if my Fourth Amendment rights are going to be violated, I want to make it that much harder. I want to make it that much more awkward for someone to pat me down. Who knows? Half the TSA agents may be gay, and they may get their kicks out of patting down the same gender people. But I wanted to at least throw a little something, a little cog in the something in the system to kind of slow it down and make it more awkward. I realized over time that not only was that really ineffective, because what's that quote about they cannot see whose paycheck depends on them not seeing, right? And so not only was I, to that audience, to that TSA agent, really not being effective, I was also impeding myself. I was wasting my own time. I was making myself very uncomfortable. And so I've, in the past year or so, started just going through the machines, right? Fast forward to last week. I was in D.C. for meetings. I was coming back through Chicago. I had a layover, and so I was still in D.C. There was this whole airport hell that I'm not going to get into with delayed flights and everything, but I finally find a flight that I can get out of there and make my connection in time. So I run down to this gate, the gate where you board, and everyone's getting on, and I noticed something out of the corner of my eye, and I realized that looks kind of out of the ordinary, and I realized there's 7 TSA agents there at the gate, patting people down and inspecting their bags prior to them boarding the plane. I was very perplexed.
After they've already been through the security checkpoint.
Totally. They've been through, everything's been done, right? And now they're here at the gate doing like a second layer of inquiry, right? A second layer of security theater. So I asked the attendant there, the United employee, I said, yeah, have you ever seen this before? And he, kind of grumbles and shakes his head. I said, what are they doing? So he reaches over and he taps the arm of the manager who was overseeing these TSA employees. And he says, this customer would like to know what you're doing. And he says, oh, we're just making sure the other TSA agents did their job thoroughly. We're going for 100%. I thought, what does that say about your competency if you are that worried, right? Which I thought was a lie. I don't think that was really the truth. But I started kind of glaring at these guys. I started taking pictures. I mean, this was a crazy scene. Literally, people are scanning their boarding pass, about to get on their gate, and they're being pat down before they can walk down that little tunnel aisle to the plane. They're being patted down, and their bags, they're tearing open these bags, very aggressively. They didn't have any X-ray machines or anything, so they're just digging into people's bags. So I'm taking pictures of this thing to document it. And that, of course, gets me the evil eye from...
You got their attention, did you?
Oh, yeah. From a lot of these TSA agents, they start looking at me, and it was really funny / awkward because they would start whispering about me. All these people had boarded the plane, and I was on standby, actually. I was hoping to get on that flight, which I finally successfully did. But things are kind of empty, and here I am with a few others on standby standing there. The TSA agents are all just kind of hanging out, and they start whispering about me. And the manager will kind of look over at me, and then he'll lean into his employees to talk to them so I don't see. And a couple of them start coming over and talking to me, pretending to be all like nonchalant, right? One comes over and just natural conversation. Oh, where are you flying today? And I'm not quite jet lagged. Well, I'm sort of jet lagged. I'm just grumpy. I hate the TSA anyways, so I'm just like, I'm not talking to you, right? The second TSA agent comes over, and by this point, I'm like hoping to get on this flight. I'm kind of tapping my fingers, a little impatient, She says, "You appear to be kind of fidgety. Are you all right?" I'm like, I didn't even respond. I just looked at her with like this, stink eye. I'm like, who are you? Like, leave me alone. Go away. And both of them, after trying this conversation, go over and talk to the manager and kind of report back to him, right? And are whispering to him about me. And anyway, so I'm going to fast forward the story here. I finally get the last seat on the plane. They let me go in, and they demand to look into my bag and give me a full pat down. And I object to all that. I think that's all the problem. The thing that sets my hair on fire the most is that when I got that pat down, I was factually and actually molested. I was, typically when they do the pat down, oh, sir, we're going to use the back of our hands, right? We're going to go up and down the leg, and I'm going to go up your thigh till I meet resistance, and then I'm going to do the other one. And in my, your groin area, they'll kind of go all around it, at least in the past. This is how it's always been done with all the many pat downs I've gotten. They'll kind of go around it, but they won't actually, make direct contact. This time, the guy had 3 passes, full on direct contact directly over my groin. And I just look down at this guy while he's doing this, and I'm just astounded that this is legal, this is acceptable, this is happening to me right then, and I'm a guy that I'm like, whatever, I don't care. I'm not like this Me Too, and I'm a victim now and everything. But, oh my gosh, this guy is now touching my genitalia. Like, how ridiculous is that we live in a government where, I don't know, I could go on a diatribe for it. This just pissed me off to no end.
And rightly so. I mean, I've never had to undergo the pat down, knock on wood.
Wow.
I know. It's a matter of time. I've had my hands swabbed. I've been through the porno scanner many, many times. Never had a pat down. But what you described, and I remember, seeing your post on Facebook and just thinking, man, Connor's, I know you get patted down probably more often than not. You seem to get the pat down. But most people seem to have lost their sense of outrage for it. I'm glad you still have yours. I'm glad you still are capable of getting your ire up, because a lot of people just shrug. I guess that's just the price we pay for being safe when we fly.
Yeah. And for all of us who are really ticked off about it, Brian, I agree with you. It's important to remain outraged. But I think people's steam, they let off their steam, right? Oh, TSA, and the steam kind of dissipates into the air. And there's no real productive way, like a locomotive engine, right? Like, you can harness steam and do amazing things with it if you capture it and focus it and use that energy. And I fear that there's really no good way for us, short of, write your congressman and whatever, to apply that energy, that focus, that outrage to affect change. Let's get into the more recent revelation here, Brian, that ironically, just happened, I think, a day or two after I got home from this trip, this new revelation that the TSA has its own surveillance program. Have you come across this, Brian? You read this yet?
I saw it when you had posted the update.
Yeah.
And since then it's kind of broken. There's a lot of people going, hey, what is this Quiet Skies program? It was interesting that the ones who approached you said, you appear fidgety, sir, because there's a whole list of things that this Quiet Skies program looks for, and they can call it whatever they want, but it's unwarranted surveillance of people who are not suspected of any specific crime, but just happen to, I think the term they call it is either partially known or unknown threat. And so the TSA, not the TSA, it's actually the TSA plus federal air marshals following people around, and the federal air marshals, in your case, I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't have a team of air marshals who received your picture and some basic information about you, and their job is to keep an eye on you from the moment you get to the airport. But they're looking for things like, did the individual have sweaty palms? Did they reverse direction? Did they go to the bathroom? Did they talk on their phone or text? Gee, that describes pretty much every traveler I've ever run into.
And there are people I know who are not opponents of the NSA, yet who object to the mass surveillance, because their point is, when you have that much data to sift through, when you're bombarding our databases and our analysts with so much information, it is hard to focus on and sift through all of that data to find the right people and the actual threats. They're basically saying we have too much input. We need to focus on getting only the input that we need, not input on every American. And I think it's the same thing here with the TSA, is that it's just so much input, irrelevant input. And it almost seems to me like it's a bureaucracy trying to justify its existence and have a make work program to say, well, we want to, increase our budget next year and make sure we're still relevant. So now we're going to expand and do this. And yes, we're going to have to increase our budget by 14% and hire all these people. But why? I mean, to your point, Brian, like one of the factors is, did they sleep on the plane? Did they have a cold, penetrating stare? Hell yeah.
About the time they started molesting you?
I just got molested. Right. Okay, so this was Boston Globe that broke the story, guys. We will definitely link to this on the show notes page, societyandthestate.com/103. It's been interesting, Brian, in the past couple of days since this story broke, that, of course, now they're defending it, right? First it was like, we're not going to respond. We're not going to acknowledge that this thing exists. But now, it's being defended as not surveillance, they say, but observation. We're just I'm sorry, like, is there an actual difference between the two? Especially when they have the ability to then try and, arrest you on terrorism charges or obstruct your flight. Or, I mean, the question is, like, what are they going to do with all this information that they're compiling? Is it being put into a dossier that's going to be handed over to local law enforcement? Like, what are the implications of all of this?
I think it's telling, too, and this is from a report in the Daily Mail from Britain, that the Air Marshals Association, I don't know if it's an actual union, but the air marshals themselves are complaining that this is a waste of our time and a waste of our resources, because they prefer to have missions that are based on recognized intelligence or in support of ongoing federal investigations. This is phishing. This is trying to strain people through the same net. Maybe they'll catch a bad guy. Who knows? They might get lucky. But think about all the people that they're going to strain through that net, the people who are going to be molested, not in a figurative sense, but perhaps literally, because they're just observing.
We have deviated so far from what's called Blackstone's law. This was like a founding father era. William Blackstone wrote commentaries on the law, and this English jurist, very well respected legal mind of his day. And he formulated this law, Blackstone's law, very popular, or I should say well known, at least in legal circles. And it says, better that 10 guilty go punished than that one innocent person or better that 10 guilty people go free than one innocent person be punished. This whole idea that as a society we should value our liberty so much that we are okay with bad people getting out there, evading capture, not being held accountable, because we are unwilling to support a system that, in an effort to go after the guilty, we suck in all of these innocent people. Oh my heavens, we have deviated from that, right? It's almost like this idea of collateral damage. That all these wars have accustomed us to this idea of acceptable collateral damage, to say, you know what, as long as we get that one terrorist on that one plane, it's okay that we're causing all these problems, this heartache, this delay, molesting people, breaking their stuff when we open their luggage, like all of this, right? That's all justified if only we can stop that one bad guy. And to me, that's the problem, is it's presumption of safety at all costs.
No, I would agree. The big problem I see is it's supposed to be providing for security. And I'm just going to go ahead and put my cards on the table. If it makes me a conspiracy theorist, I'll take whatever label people want to put on me. I don't think that what we see at the airport is anything more than security theater. I think it's there to condition us to give the appearance, look at what we're doing to make things safer. And you had mentioned this earlier. The last figure I saw was there was an 80% failure rate when TSA agents were tested with fake weapons, fake bombs, things that absolutely you would not want getting through security. They failed 80% of the time to detect those things. So as far as, it's saving us, and well, we've prevented a lot of terrorist plots, but they're all classified, so we can't tell you about it. I don't buy that. I think the function of what's happening with airport security right now is it is a conditioning system that is intended to teach us, you and me, our place. and that we are to obey those who have authority over us, no matter what they do, no matter what they say. We're to obey without question. And I think it's part of a mental conditioning that will likely continue and expand for upcoming generations.
And whether or not you're right, Brian, and I agree with you, but whether or not you're right is rather immaterial, because the outcome is precisely what. So whether they were intending for this system to have that effect, or if they're genuinely trying to stop bad guys, that doesn't matter, because the outcome is precisely what you said, that we are now conditioned. When you look at people, when I would object, when I would cause problems at the TSA, even at the gate last week when I was causing issues, I had some supportive, side glances and nods and things. But like, you get those sideways glances of people who are like, oh my gosh, why are you trying to cause problems, and let's keep your head down and just, get through this. And I think that's right. I think people are being conditioned, and especially it turns our society from one in which there's a presumption of liberty, where you have the right to just go where you want, talk to who you want, do what you want, absent, you causing any problems. It flips that presumption into one of permission. You may only proceed, sir, if we authorize you to do so. You may only work in that chosen profession of yours if we give you a license to do so. You may only build your home on your property if we give you a permit to do so. When our society changes that presumption, as it has, I think it has a much broader psychological impact on us. It turns us into subservient people, right? Brian, exactly what you just mentioned. The effect is precisely as we see playing out. That conditioning is happening, and it really worries me.
And as bad as it bothers me, the violation of my rights, here's the part that really chaps my hide. It's the idea that those who are molesting us and violating our rights and teaching us to be subservient, we're supposed to pretend that they're heroes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, after all, they're wearing a uniform. They're part of the apparatus that's there to keep us safe. So we're expected, and some people do buy into, well, yeah, they're heroic for what they're doing. I'm sad that more people can't recognize and aren't willing to call them out for what they are.
Yeah. Guys, we're going to wrap that up. That uplifting topic that we all love to talk about and vent about, perhaps a better put. If any of you have an creative idea, strategic plan to undermine the TSA and allow us to once again freely walk from the parking lot to the gate to greet our family and our
Uber
friends.
For the skies.
Oh, man.
I want to see it happen.
Please email us. Let us know what that plan is, because for all the political successes we've had on other issues, this one just vexes me and needs to stop. Thanks for listening, guys. Tune in next time. We have a great guest lined up for you. Make sure you're subscribed to the show. societyandthestate.com/103 for the links about this new Quiet Skies program. I posted the Miss America video of her being molested, so you can see that story. Susie Castillo, I believe, was her name, from a few years ago. So check out those links, societyandthestate.com/103. And thanks for sticking around and listening.
Thanks for listening to Society and the State. For show notes, archives, and more great content, visit societyandthestate.com.